Good morning. Good morning and welcome to this week's Grow, where we gather to recharge, organize, and work here as members of MWEG. We are happy to have some chapter leadership with us today who will be talking about recent day at the capitals for each of their respective states and what that looks like. If you've never participated in a day at the Capitol, they're going to explain a little bit of what that looks like, what the meetings are, and who they're able to meet with. It's different each time. And so I'm just going to invite each of them, hopefully turn their cameras on and join me as we discuss a little bit about these days at the Capitol. So let me just introduce, we have Mallory Wheat and Emily Bastian, who are the MWEG Utah chapter leads. And we have Christy Black, who is the MWEG Arizona chapter lead, and Amber is our legislative. Amber Daniel.
We're actually on the we just changed titles. Advocacy coordinators.
Advocacy. Oh, I like that. And then we have Deanne Thomas, who is from our Idaho chapter. Is that right, Deanne? Are you going to represent Idaho today for the day at the Capitol? Anyway, so one of the things I was thinking is if you each want to take a little bit and explain what is Day at the Capitol? What does that look like for your chapter or for any chapter for that matter? What is Day at the Capitol? Does one of you want to take it?
Yeah, I can go. So our Day at the Capitol, I'm from the Utah chapter. This was our second year that we've done it. And we wanted kind of the beginning idea of it was getting women up to the state capitol, being able to see the space there, see themselves there, talking to their legislators, testifying in committee hearing. But the idea at first was just let's get people up there and show them that it's not that scary, that it's the people's house and it's accessible to everyone, and everyone can have a voice there. So this year we started out by having a legislative 101. And that is a presentation that our advocacy committee, our Utah chapter advocacy committee presented. And they talked about like how a bill becomes a law. They talked about effective ways to communicate with your legislature, with your legislators, and talked about some bills that were going to be heard in the committee that afternoon, just so they had a chance if they wanted to go actually see what was going to be happening at the Capitol that day. And then we invited some legislators to come. So our advocacy committee, members of our advocacy committee invited their own legislators. So most of them had already spoken to them before and had a relationship with their legislators. And so they reached out to them and invited them to come and speak to us. So we had 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, and one of them was a senator and 3 of them were from the House of Representatives. So we had a good variety there, and they talked about the bills that they're running. They talked about different things that go on behind the scenes. And one of the legislators, or a couple of them actually, talked about appropriations, which we don't really talk a lot about. Like a lot of times the public is just focused on bills, but appropriations is money, and that's a very important part of the process. The main job of the legislature is actually to pass a budget and to appropriate all the money from the government. And so they were in the middle of finishing up their appropriation recommendation. So they talked about that process and like just how important it is. And you can also talk to your legislators about that. Give them your input on how you want the money to be spent. So after, and I do have a picture if we wanted to share a picture. But after we talked with our legislators, we went on a tour of the Capitol, and some people who have been up there before, they just did that the beginning part, and then they left after that. But if they had never been up there, we took them on a tour of the Capitol building, so they got to see the House chambers and the Senate chamber. We went inside the the House chamber and got to see as they were voting on bills. And then we just got to see the Supreme Court room in the Utah Capitol building. Actually, they just have a small room and they don't actually use it for very much. But we saw the room, and the Supreme Court actually meets in a different building now. But we saw that room that with like the historical room, and then we saw the governor's like ceremonial room for the governor. So just got to see all around the state capitol building. And then something that we had done beforehand was in an email before, we encouraged them to reach out to their legislators and tell them that they were going to be up there that day. So we kind of guided people along with email them beforehand. And then when you're up there, send them a text message and try to get in contact with them while they're up there. So we didn't have anything specific that we wanted them to talk about. We just said, talk about anything that's on your mind, anything that you've been hearing about, and whatever you want them, you want to talk to them about. So we did have many women who set up their own, either a meeting beforehand or just texted them and talked to their legislators. So a thing that you can do in Utah, I'm not sure how it is in different states, but in Utah, in the House of Representatives, you just have to have one foot in the door to vote. So it's very easy for them to just slip out and talk to their constituents out in the hallway, or it's like a big lobby area. So you can just text your legislator while you're there and say, hey, I'm outside. Do you have time to just slip out and talk to me? And you can just talk to them for a few minutes. If they need to take a vote, they can just step over, put their foot in the door and do like a thumbs up for yes or down for no. And that's how they can vote. In the Senate, it's a little bit harder in Utah because they actually have to be at their desk. So they can still slip out, but they have to actually go back to their desk to vote. So it's, we just wanted everyone to realize that it's really accessible. Your legislators should want to talk to you because you are their constituents. You're the ones that they are representing up there. So we wanted them to see that it's not scary. It's not something, your legislators are not scary. They're just regular people. In Utah, we have a citizen legislature. So our legislators only meet for 45 days and then they have jobs as well, just full-time jobs. So they're just like regular people. They're school teachers and they're social workers and lawyers and police officers, all kinds of different people. And they're just up there representing you. And because they have those jobs, a lot of times they're not like subject area expertise. Maybe they have their subject area expertise in their own job, but there's a whole bunch of different topics that they cover up there. And you might have something, an expertise that they don't have, and they would appreciate that input and hearing what you think about different things. So that is our day at the Capitol.
So I would be curious, and anybody can answer this, of how many people did you meet with that were unfamiliar with MWAG and that you kind of had to give an introduction to MWAG and what we're about? Did anybody have any opportunities to share what we're working on and what our organization's like, or did you meet with people that maybe you'd already knew?
For our day at the Capitol, we were mostly just there for education. So we didn't go around like telling people about MWAG. A lot of them already know us up there. And so we did have people who recognized us and were like, oh, we love MWAG. We had, when we were in our little room talking with people, we had a table outside that had a bunch of things about MWAG with like flyers and buttons and handouts. And we saw a lot of people just stop at the table and be like, oh, what is this? And look, but we're kind of a mix. We have people that know and already know us up there, and we're introducing them as well.
It was fun to see one of,
yeah,
oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, it was fun to see one of our members talk to a senator who they used to work together, and they had a great conversation, and he had never heard of MWAG. And so that was fun to be able, that they knew each other from work years ago, and then they were able to connect, and she was able to talk to him about MWIC. So that was a neat experience that I just kind of happened to listen in on.
How about from Idaho and Arizona? I know that we're in Utah, there's a more member presence from MWAG, but I feel like and I did attend the Arizona day, but wasn't involved in scheduling those meetings. So for Idaho and for Arizona, did you guys have to do introductions of MWAG, and how did that, how was that received, or how did that go for scheduling your meetings even?
Well, so we did not schedule meetings where a lot of our members are based, which I know you know this, Rachel, but I know everyone else doesn't. We do have actually several LDS senators and representatives that we've not been able to meet with, that we've made a lot of efforts to meet with, and just have not heard back. Now, some of those include my own representatives, actually. And we also had several contacts that we, over the last several years, had really fostered a relationship with, where we could call or, email and say, hey, it's us again. What do you think of this bill? Or we have concerns with this one, or, we could have really good conversations. And every single one of those legislators that we had a really good relationship with did not win their re-election bid in 2022. And so we've had kind of a hard time starting over and building new relationships. And so that was one of the big focuses we wanted to do work on this time, is find just a couple key contacts. And so Amber actually reached out to one Republican and one Democrat. Actually, that's not entirely true. Well, yeah, one Republican, one Democrat to speak to us. The Republican, it didn't work out. Then we also coordinated with a different Republican to just host us, to host our event, and he gave us a tour. And I think something like that can go a long way to foster a relationship. So we didn't even really talk a lot of details on policies or specific legislation. In a lot of ways, this was just like, we're trying to build a relationship. We're trying to get to know you all, let you all know who we are, and have that relationship in place so that when we do have bills or things that we have concerns with or want to push forward, that we already have those relationships like in place.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of the feeling that I had too, from attending, is that these as Christy said, that we had a host, and he was familiar with MWAG, and even though he didn't have any or any constituents in our meeting that day, it was interesting to find out that the people that we did speak with, that they had held roles in different areas of government, whether it was on a very community level before they went to a state level, larger position in government, or what their different roles were. And so we were able to ask some questions like, how do you feel about this now, having seen it from a different point of view? And I think that knowing that people have professional careers before they run for an office you can kind of ask them those kind of questions, like, what's your point of view, because you've had this experience and kind of thing. Deanne, do you want to tell us a little bit about Idaho's Capitol Day at the Capitol?
I'd be glad to do that. I almost want to apologize. I just came in from working out, so I look like it. So I'm just going to preface that. I would like to. Good morning, and I'm happy to have this opportunity. It's nice to be here, and it's good to hear the other states that what you're doing and kind of how you customize that in your state. This is our third day at the Capitol, and I would have to say about half and half. About half of our the people that we met with know us. The other half think that they might have heard our name, but they're not really sure, that kind of thing. We do set appointments up ahead of time because there's really some key people we want to make sure that we are able to meet with. And that's the pro tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House. And we've built a good relationship with the Lieutenant Governor and the Secretary of State, and our ability to just think, just to walk in probably is, and be able to see them is not that great. So and then I've asked that we've had different people come in and off of our advocacy team and committee. And so I've asked them to always try to make appointments with their legislators while we're there. So we break into teams of 2 or 3 women and someone who has gone before. We have trainings beforehand. We're not just meeting there for those who we know are going to be there, but we always have a few women show up. We make that invitation. This time we had 5 that are not on our committee, and we didn't know they were going to be there. That was fantastic. And we team those up, and then we go out to the set appointments. But once we get back into the rooms where the appointments are at, because they have a sergeant of arms outside of, a set of offices. Your capitals are probably set up similarly. Then it gives us a good opportunity to introduce ourselves to the other House of Representative people or the senators that are in that area. I would just say that reintroducing ourselves is always a really good idea. We have I thought I might have it handy, but we have the handout that was kind of custom for Idaho, but it's an MWEG handout, and we always use that and refer back to that when we're meeting. We have 3 advocacies this year, so we do bring up our advocacies. We don't spend a lot of time on that. We really want to hear from them, what's important to them. But those advocacies spurred some good conversations, and we were invited to do a couple of things because we brought those up. So I think I just generated our report for our newsletter, and all in all, we made appointments or saw 27 representatives and 18 senators, and then some people at the executive branch. What was really gratifying is we had several people as we were going through the halls that reached out and to shake our hand and thank us for the work we're doing. I think that they're just, for the most part, the LDS senators and representatives are just always so glad to get a pat on the back, a little support, especially those that we see as more balanced and a little more representative of the citizens rather than a party. And we really do try to give them some real kudos while we're there, and really tell them what we appreciate their legislation. So our first appointment started at 8 o'clock in the morning, and some people had appointments clear up until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So the Speaker of the House, the Senate Majority Leader is LDS. She happens to be also a Relief Society president, and she introduced us to the full Senate, and that was real special at that for that day. But I agree with everything everyone's saying here. It's relationships. It is relationships, and to nurture those and move them forward, and it takes a lot of time. I think whenever I see this little note that it's approximately 5 hours a week, I want to smile about that. And it's just a lot of time and work. But anyway, that's a little bit about what we did and what we've worked on over the last 3 years.
Yes, you guys have been very, very busy. It sounds like that's a lot of meetings in a full day. And thank you so much for your time and doing that. I was just thinking, we were not able to get a meeting with my representative, who happens to be the president of the Senate for the state of Arizona. But because I knew who my representative was, I knew what he looked like. And there were a couple of us from his district. We actually saw him out on the plaza, and one of the MWEG members stopped him and said, "Hey, this is who I am. This is our group. We've been here today." And she handed him the MWEG information sheet and just said, "We want to give you this." And it was interesting because it's somebody that I know a little bit personally. He lived in my stake. He is LDS, and has lived in my stake, and I've known different family members, so I was able to relate to him on a personal levels, and then ask him, to please make time for MWEG at some point. So it was one of those things, like everybody has said, it's relationships and getting to know them. So if you see their face, you can stop and say, hey, I'm one of your constituents. I live in your district. Do you have 3 minutes? Do you have 5 minutes that I can just ask you some questions or share with, some things that are important to me or to my community or to my family or however it might be. So I just want to echo the relationship part of constantly sending them emails, right? And just being a name that they might recognize as somebody that is interested in the work that they are doing and is watching, like, and invested. Mallory, did you want to share?
Yeah, I would add that at the federal level, like you're not going to see your senator walking around like your congressional senator, and maybe you might have a little better relationship with your House of representative. But at the state level, yeah, you can really get to know your senator and your House of Representative because they're not representing like these huge populations. It's a pretty good size, but for people who are actually trying to build a relationship with their representatives at this local level, yeah, they will definitely get to know you, and you can try to build a good relationship so that when they see you in the future, an email comes in, they'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that person. I've talked to them quite a few times. They seem like a very rational person. They've done their research. Yeah, I will listen to what they have to say.
Yeah, and I think oftentimes some of those people continue into politics, and then they do become at the federal level, right? And then we've represented MWEG well, that hopefully we can get those meetings. And one thing I will say is, I think if you're participating, and I would encourage any of our members to participate in a day at the Capitol, if they live in a state that has a chapter and they're able to go, to find a time that you can participate. And if you live in a place where you don't have a chapter of MWEG, maybe find some women, make it a Relief Society activity, something, gather some people who are interested and go take a tour of your Capitol, or ask to, similar to what we was organized for these chapters. You can do this without needing MWEG organization. So this is an encouragement for everybody to go, and if this interests you, to go and schedule those meetings and want to talk to your representatives. And I would also encourage that through the new MWEG app, you can subscribe to the areas of advocacy that are of interest to you on the MWEG national level. And then you can, if you're interested there, you can participate with state senators on a federal level. You can, ask to join in on a call, because once in a while they do have these meetings and these calls that you can say, look, I'm from your state and I support this, or I'm asking you to support this, or whatever the bill may be. But this is a good segue into getting involved and knowing what's happening in your state government. Is there anything else that anybody wanted to share? Emily or Christy? Feel like it's been covered. How often, Mallory, Christy, Deanne, how often do you guys do Day at the Capitol? Do you do it just once a year or twice a year?
Well, our legislature only meets for 45 days. So,
Oh, right.
and that includes weekends. So we just do once a year.
We only do once a year as well. Our session, we don't have a hard fast end date. It's actually kind of odd. They have a target end date, but last year I think we went like 2 or 3 months past what we were supposed to, when we usually do. It just dragged on forever and ever and ever. But at that point, like, there's still a timeline where new bills aren't being introduced, committees aren't meeting. It's just between the Senate and, House members that are working things out. But we try to meet with legislators throughout the year. at least on Zoom, and we try to include any constituents that would apply to those legislators.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of heads nodding, saying yes, yes, yes. This is why it's important to join your chapter and to, you know, and just kind of keep a little bit of an eye on what's happening, so that, as Christy and Mallory and Deanne were talking about, that there's certain things that are state specific that would be important, that you may want to join those Zoom calls and be in on that. So I just want to reiterate chapters. It's just important to join your chapter and be active and kind of keep an eye on that. And again, the new MWAG app makes it really easy, because once you sign up, it will assign you to your state chapter if there is one. So highly, highly encourage that. Well, I want to thank all of you for joining the Grow today and sharing with all of us your day at the Capitol experiences. I hope that everybody will, you know, stick around and like I said, watch the app, see what events are happening. There's a lot of ways to be involved. We have some living room conversations that you can join. And if you go to the events page, you can see that. We have, of course, our spring conference is coming up on March 23rd at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. If you don't live in Utah, you are welcome to. Oh, there's Mallory's picture.
There's my picture just before we go.
That's I love it. But we would love to have you join us at the conference, either virtually, which we have virtual passes available, or in person. And with either registration, you can have access to the recordings of all the sessions. And we would just love to have everybody there and join us. And that Utah chapter day at the Capitol is very impressive. You guys had a lot of ladies. And I just loved, like Deanne was talking about, that there's kind of a mentorship that happens, and just the sisterhood that MY brings for all of us. You know, it's just a little bit, it's different. It's on that civics political level, but it still exists. And it's really one of the things that makes MY wonderful. So thank you all for joining me today, and thank you for being on the Grow, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.